They say there's no right way to think, just many brilliant ones. What if everything we thought and knew about ADHD was only part of the story? Today's episode will definitely prompt you to pause and rethink everything you've been told about attention, stillness, and what it really means to be different. In a world where we're so quick to label, medicate, and mold children into narrow boxes of behavior, we're opening another conversation about ADHD, not just as a diagnosis, disorder, but a doorway into one's soul, nervous system, and perhaps a much-needed call for societal change. Joining me today is Dominic Watts, a meditation teacher, author, and a well-being coach at the Free Spirit Collective here in Dubai. And he has a beautiful way of bringing mindfulness into the lives of children, parents, and educators. His work weaves together neuroscience, ancient wisdom, and spiritual insight. And this conversation, we will gently peel back the labels and ask, what is the mind really? What could it do? And what is ADHD if it's not a disorder, rather than just another form of brilliance? This conversation is raw and real and deeply soulful. And it might actually change how you see yourself, your child, or somebody that you love. Let's dive in. Dominic or Dom?
Dom,
what would you prefer?
Definitely Dom. Please, yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really, really excited. This was a long time coming. We've been talking about this for months now. And you had a lot of very exciting things happening. So I feel like now we've made the time and dragged you in here and had you sit here and actually tackle a subject that I think we can both agree is so murky in its just true existence. And I'm just really grateful that you're here.
I'm really, really happy to be here. It's a lovely place. It's really nice to meet you at last.
Thank you. So for everybody who's just clicked in, either maybe because the topic seemed it hit close to home, they're just generally curious. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you see on your day-to-day basis?
I started my career as a teacher, but I've been passionate about mind, meditation, spirit, philosophical, deeper questions ever since I was 15 is kind of the earliest I can remember really thinking about that kind of stuff. But teacher for 8 years or so, used to work in the UK and live in the UK, then moved over here, worked for one school here, and then I moved into well-being full-time. So when I was a teacher, I was bringing meditation and mindfulness into the curriculum and into the classroom. With my classes, we were doing meditation beginning of every single lesson, every single day. And I think we'll get onto that later because it's really important, I think. So now I work in wellbeing full-time, as I said, as a coach, and I work largely with children, but I work with more adults now than previously. As you mentioned, I've just written my first book. Almost finished now.
Congratulations. Almost finished.
Not easy.
Well, you'll have to give us a link to it as soon as it's out.
Yes, please, I will. Yeah. It's called Diary of a Mindful Dad, Uncensored. So it's all about how crazy the parenting journey is and how hard it is. And you know what it's like. I know you've got kids yourself. And so I've been applying my work more to parenting now as well. So conscious parenting, people talk about a lot. And this book was kind of a live following of the journey of what's going to happen next. I had no idea, obviously. And so I'm trying to apply the principles that I've been studying relentlessly for so many years to all of the adventures of parenting. And it was totally surprising in every sense, as you can imagine. But essentially, I guess the core of my work is that I think there's a different way of being in the world, a different way of attending to things and to people and to the challenges in your life, which is truly transformational. And I think that our modern society still doesn't really see that side of things enough, and I certainly don't think it's enough. It has enough airtime when we talk about ADHD and many other things. So I guess that's a little bit of an intro. So I use lots of meditation, but not only formal meditation, bringing in the principles of meditation into daily life, essentially. So because I think that's one of the misconceptions with meditation is everyone sees it as this thing where it's just an activity where you just go sit down, but it's much deeper than that.
Do you know, to be honest, brutally honest, that's what I think meditation is. You go to the side and just do it when you need to, if it's a stressful thing. But I think we'll get to that in terms of meditation and mindfulness. But yeah, I think you're right. The majority of people would consider meditation as something that you would do if and when you need.
Yeah. But really it's just about attention. And that's why ADHD plays into all of my work and all the research that I've done and the studying and exploring that I've done myself, because it's about attention. And really attention is the fundamental aspect of being human, right? It's the foundation of our world, of our inner world. So it's really important not to minimize the importance of attention. I think we're going to cover that probably various times throughout this.
So, I mean, you always, again, speaking to you and kind of getting to know a little bit about your work, you talk about being present, obviously. But then also at the same time, again, we've labeled children, adults, all these people to be almost disordered or distracted in terms of their focus and attention. So if we were to, and in its simplest form, to define and understand what ADHD is, so what causes it, how, in terms of what it actually is, as well as how can we truly understand it? It's a big one. But then I think it's one of those things, you've got so many definitions of it that essentially everyone is under the assumption that it is just something that people experience, or it's a disorder that people have when there's a lack of focus and attention. And in terms of whether it's distraction or just inability to sit still, so hyperactivity or whatever it might be. This is from a mom listening to other parents talk about it, at least.
Yeah, I think it's so difficult to define it. Like you said, there's so many different ways. It depends from which lens you're looking at it. So the biomedical lens labels it perhaps as a neurodevelopmental condition, whereas someone else might describe it as a syndrome, behavioral syndrome, for example. Or I know people, myself, adults who've been diagnosed with ADHD, who describe it as just a different way of being. So the words get quite tricky, and I think I have a lot of background in philosophy, right? So I want to inquire into everything from a philosophical standpoint, which means starting from a point of view of nothing, starting from a point of view of I don't know. That's what I try and encourage children to do, by the way, as well. It's really, really helpful for them. And they're so shocked when you do that. They're not used to that. They think that knowing is a good thing, not knowing is a bad thing. Right?
I mean, that's what they've been taught.
Exactly. And so when they don't know, there's this fear, but really it should be the opposite. And I think that we need to do that with this whole topic. So asking, well, what is it? And as soon as if you really stop and ask what is it and take time with it, then we realize that, I know people get upset by the idea that it's a label, but of course it's a label. Everything is a label. Chair is a label, right? Water is a label. That's not water. That is what it is. Water is a word. So ADHD is it's a series of words, right? But it's pointing to something. And I think we need to bear in mind that what it's pointing to is mysterious, right? There's aspects of it which are very well understood. So it's patterns of behavior, patterns of experience, which can be categorized together. And when they meet a certain threshold or go over a certain threshold, then one might be clinically diagnosed as having ADHD. And I just think it's important to bear in mind that it's slightly muddy. The edges of it are blurry. So different practitioners might diagnose different people, let's say. Obviously, in an ideal world, hopefully they're pretty close to one another, but it wouldn't be surprising to see different practitioners, one person saying that someone does definitely have clinically significant ADHD and someone does not. So I feel like when we speak about it, I just always try to encourage a slight openness, and a flexibility with seeing where the edges are, because if it's fixed, then it's fixed, and it means it's black or white. It's either yes or no. And that tends to affect the way we think about how to address it and deal with it. And it tends to change the way we think about what causes it. So just, for example, looking at it from a neurological standpoint alone, if you are told that ADHD is a neurological condition, then that means that you will think that it originates in the brain, is caused by the brain, and it's only the brain. Absolutely. The brain's the only thing that matters there.
Absolutely. But the moment you said that, that's what I think.
Yeah. That
there's some sort of imbalance or something that's not properly functioning or something that's missing in the brain. Right,
and this is why it's so difficult, because that is happening, right? The the brain is a part of the world. The brain is a part of the human being. So everything's affecting everything else. And there are things that are happening in everybody's brains. And if somebody is struggling with executive functioning, that's going to show up in their brain as well. So it's important that we don't dismiss it, but that we give it its place, but also contextualizing it, I think. And so if we lose the context, then it changes the way we think about treatment, for example. So you might think, if somebody's never looked into it, never researched it, never really spoken to anyone about it, and they just get told, right, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's all about the brain. You can treat it using this medication that does this to the brain. Done. It's quite closed. It's not flexible as a way of looking.
Absolutely.
So I think that generally the dialogue, the narrative on this topic, just like most other topics, is too, and you actually said it in the intro, too narrow and too shallow. And my aim is to just broaden it, open it up, make it just larger,
Why do you think it is so fuzzy around the edges? Why is there so much confusion? I've always just wanted to understand, what is it, because we're all human and we operate differently, and it's quite difficult to kind of, again, narrow down what something is, or is it because it's just fundamentally understood from the get-go?
I think you've nailed it there. That's perfect. It's very difficult to say what anything is. I remember I spoke to you about this before, and there's an example I use of just getting the spectrum of colours up. So you get red, yellow, and orange with all the different shades, and just ask someone where red begins and where it ends. And people disagree on where the boundary is. So it's just the same with this. And any other thing like this it's very helpful to be able to point to things and to be able to put them in a box. It's very helpful to do that. I'm not demonizing that. We should do that. We need to do that. For example, this is an example I always use with kids. Is that a door? Everyone would say yes, right? But door is a word. So then the kids are like, oh my God, that means words are pointless. And no, it doesn't mean they're pointless. Door has a purpose because it allows us to say, could you please open the door?
That's right.
They're very, very important. Words are really, really powerful, but we have to see the limit of them as well. So in the same way, we need to see that ADHD as a term is very, very helpful because it has been tremendously helpful for allowing us to identify that there's a certain way of being in the world which is different from other ways of being in the world on that spectrum, like looking at the spectrum of colours, right? And that it's valid. It's a valid way of existing, and that it's there. But again, just remembering the edges. So your question was, why is it fuzzy? I just think because everything is. There's nothing, but we don't want it to be. We'd love it if it was just
black
certain,
and white,
obvious, put it in a box, done, because you don't have to think about it then. Yeah. You don't have to actually really go into it deeply.
What do you think is the most understood part of it? In terms of ADHD, I mean, a lot of statements I get is, my son or my daughter might have ADHD because they can't sit still.
That's so difficult,
right?
Because look, we're at this point where we have to work out what's the line.
Exactly. But I feel like the line is not even really a line. There's no line. And it's almost like, another question of mine, why has it come up in such a big flurry?
Let's go through because they're two huge ones. So the first one, it reminded me of a conversation I had with my colleague Diksha. She's amazing, and she's in charge of assessment diagnosis at the centre that I work for, Free Spirit Collective. And I had a really interesting discussion with her on this, and she was describing to me just how difficult it can be to really ascertain if someone is struggling with ADHD or not. And the investigations that go on when someone's doing it really carefully with real attention to detail and taking into account every aspect of the person's life situation. I guess, and I don't want to misquote her here, but she was essentially saying that it can be significantly impairing for people, on a large scale in many different areas of life. And if it is significantly impairing someone's life, these behaviors that get clustered together, then there's a certain threshold you can meet where it becomes clinically diagnosable. And that does sound completely reasonable to me. And obviously there's going to be difficulty there because we can all struggle with paying attention. We can all be uninterested in things. We can all get distracted. So I think hopefully that goes some way towards answering the first question. And the second one, this is what everybody's saying. Why is it on the rise so much? I think the answers people give are always the same as this as well, right? So people are getting tested more, for sure. because people are talking about it more. That's fair enough. That doesn't mean that those diagnoses are inaccurate, does it? Just because more people are actually realizing it's a possible thing that they've been dealing with and then going for a potential diagnosis. But I think we cannot deny that the world is changing, and we need to recognize and be honest enough to see that the ways in which the world is changing are affecting all those aspects of us which show up in ADHD, right? We are, the one that everybody mentions because it's so obvious. Technology is speeding us up. So it's stopping us from being able to be still, right? And if we can't be still, we're going to be more distracted, we're going to be more impulsive and all of that. So there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the way we live is speeding everybody up and pushing us all in that direction, let's say, right? Not necessarily to having ADHD, let's say, but it's making us all, you know what I mean.
You're right, in the sense, I'm just trying to, even for myself, there is a level of distraction, sort of an undercurrent of distraction throughout my day because I've got a mobile phone. Yeah. As much as I feel, sort of go back 20 years ago, I'm sure there was another distraction, but this is quite a big one. I mean, sometimes I find myself actively having to put it away or not wanting to quickly answer back to that email or answer that call or, I forgot something. I'll just hop onto InstaShop and just get that eggs or whatever it is. There was almost a time and a place for things. Whereas now the time and the place is just all the time. And I find that, I don't know, I mean, as you mentioned, the technology is speeding us up, but I feel more than anything else, myself as a parent, there is a level of distraction that I'm definitely bringing in. I don't know if somehow in a weird way that's also a contributor because, you just see the distraction. There is a distraction. It's sort of, everything is almost delayed in needs are delayed. Sort of like for me to be able to, let's say if I'm distracted on my phone and my son or my husband needs something, I'm like, just 1 minute. Yeah. Just 1 minute. And then their focus shifts to something else. And then I come back, but it could potentially be 15 minutes have passed. And I'm like, oh, that was really fleeting, but I've been distracted this whole time. I go into this constant cycle to think, well, no, I think it is just a problem that we're all having. Not so much just because somebody cannot sit still in a classroom or somebody has forgotten to do something 100 times. That's where I'm at with this.
Yeah, that's why I think, again, it is important to separate those kind of things from clinical ADHD presentation because it's easy to underestimate how much people can struggle as a result of this and in how many different areas of their life. And if we haven't spoken to lots of people who experience ADHD that way, we may underestimate the impact that it has on their life, right? But all the things you're saying, and this is why I always want to broaden the conversation because sometimes talking about ADHD can force us into the trap of believing that this kind of thing is confined to those people. And obviously that isn't true, like you're saying. The thing about the phone, obviously we're going to talk about phones a lot, I'm sure. I ask, when I do a talk on mindfulness, I start with a slide that says, see if you can turn your phone off. Yeah. And then what do you think people do?
I don't remember the last time I turned off my phone.
Yeah, okay. So what do you think people do when that slide comes up?
Just, I don't know, wiggle on their seat a little.
Well, no. What do you think they do with their phone?
Look at their phone.
Well, they just press the button on the side.
Yeah.
They don't actually turn it off. But it's not off, is it?
No.
And in many cases, it's still got notifications on. So it's nowhere near off. And we're always connected to it, right? But if you fully turn it off, it disconnects your mind from it in a different way, I find. So just one of the things I've tried to do myself, which I've found so helpful, is just turning it off as often as possible. And obviously it's really hard. You can't just do that all day. But to do that sometimes, you see the difference that it makes. And then what happens is, it's like any other addiction, okay? Let's say someone's addicted to alcohol. And they say, get all the alcohol out of the house, for example. So then when they want to drink, because there isn't one there, there's a gap.
A barrier.
That tiny little gap opens up where they're like, oh. And so then, or even if they just move it from the normal place, they go to the normal place, but it's not there, creates a gap where where awareness rushes in, right? So when the phone is off, what I've noticed, it's so interesting to watch it happen, is when you start doing it often, then you go, you think you want to go on your phone. And then when you realize it's off, you suddenly realize you didn't need to. A lot of the time you didn't need to. We've kind of gone off topic slightly, but we're always going to talk about phones and
they're all
attention.
kind of interconnected, and that's the thing. And I find it all just ties in so nicely when it comes to ADHD because, like you said, it is all fast. Everything is fast. Your attention is getting distracted. Or being pulled in all different directions. And I'm not saying that obviously when you are clinically diagnosed properly with ADHD, and as you mentioned that it can potentially be debilitating, that is a completely different thing to throwing the word around so loosely. Yeah. And I just find throwing the word around loosely is dangerous, especially when it's around younger audiences. And that's the only thing that I am having a bit of trouble with.
Right, yeah.
Because you hear it so often, but it's done almost like a turn of phrase,
Casual.
almost as such a casual thing. And that's what kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. It shouldn't be casual, and it's not something that just because you're distracted or just because, we're all in the boat. So let's not, I guess, simplify it to be just another thing that we can say just to describe somebody with a little bit of, extra energy or, something like that. And that's what I get worried because obviously I've got kids in the school system myself. I work and I do this and I'm constantly sort of running, on a pretty high energy level. I don't want to have to just always second guess myself or my children. And I think that's what most parents are afraid of. Maybe the throwing of the word, not in, it didn't really mean for it to come out, but they heard it in school. Maybe a teacher had slightly hinted towards it. And then obviously that sends them into a spiral. So without seeing a proper, somebody who can actually lead them in the right direction.
Yeah. Would you say that then in the parent community, your own parent community, that there's a fear of it, like it's
100%.
Like it's a shadow kind of looming over them, and that at any minute their son or daughter might just be diagnosed with ADHD because 100%. They didn't sit down once.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a major issue, isn't it? But that it opens up the whole area of society. And you asked at the beginning about causes, and there's so much debate about what causes it. If because in my job and in my own training, I've never been interested in diagnoses. I've never been interested in different classifications of mind. I've only been interested in healing. That's it. How do we heal? That's the only thing I've cared about.
Just a small caveat to that. Diagnosis, do you, just in your own personal opinion, is it helpful?
It's very difficult to say, isn't it? It depends very much on the context, because I know people where it's been tremendously helpful. And I know people where it's been helpful for the right reasons, and I've also seen other people where it's helpful for the wrong reasons, perhaps, and I've seen it also when it can be unhelpful. Should we look at a couple of examples? Makes sense, right? So I work with somebody who gave me permission actually to raise this on the podcast. Hated school. Okay, I can resonate with that. And
I think a lot of people can.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure we're going to go further into that. But he was diagnosed with ADHD when he was about 6 or 7 and couldn't sit still, running around all the time. And by the way, this is totally irrelevant to whether he has ADHD or not, this story actually. So the teacher told the class that he was taking medication for this. And it actually damaged his friendships. It affected his friendships. It massively affected his self-esteem because of the way it was presented to him and the way it was framed. And that's one of the things that's so amazing about where this is all going for us, is that the neurodivergence movement has meant that this is not being demonized as it was before. And that's so helpful, because it means that it's not being seen as a terrible thing about you, which you can't do anything about, and it's just you, and everyone's different from that, and that's really horrible, and that causes such deep damage that's really, really difficult to actually reverse. So that's one example of when diagnosis is unhelpful, and it's all largely to do with the way it's being framed. If they'd sat that boy down and explained fully the situation, we know you don't enjoy maths. We know you don't enjoy this and that. And sometimes you find it quite hard to sit still and all that. That's totally fine. Loads of people struggle with that. There's a word we give to that. Sometimes for some people who really struggle with this, we think maybe you benefit from this. They ended up putting him on medication. I've forgotten which one it was. And it depressed him a lot, and his parents became really upset by the way that it was changing his personality. Even a couple of his teachers, this is not demonizing medication, by the way, we'll get onto that, I'm sure, as well. Even a couple of his teachers said that he wasn't him anymore, and they didn't like it. And so that's one example of it going wrong in various ways. On the other hand, you've got adults who have struggled with this their whole lives. They haven't been able to, just for example, executive functioning has been really difficult for them. So they haven't been able to cope with lots of the things that some other people can find easy, like making a routine and having organization in their life on a day-to-day basis. And so if those people...
Is that what executive functioning means?
Yeah, it's kind of, in a way, yes. It's like organization, structure. Yeah, it's all relating to that. And it relates a lot to time as well, doing things at this time, at this time, at this time. But so if someone's been struggling with that on a deep level throughout their whole life, and no one's talked about it with them, they've subconsciously taken that on as something which is just, it just makes them feel bad about themselves. And they look at everybody else finding it easier, and they just think there's something wrong with them. That's really debilitating. That's horrible for your self-esteem. That's really crippling. Yeah. So then if that person goes and gets a diagnosis, they find out that, okay, this is a thing. Like we've said, yes, maybe there's fuzzy edges, but this is a thing that loads of people struggle with in just the same way.
Yeah, this, clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge relief.
Yeah.
That provides huge relief and a complete transformation in self-esteem. And it can be healing just to be told that. It can actually, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that can actually help those people with some of those things they struggled with. Just knowing that, what we've just described, knowing that it's something which loads of other people struggle with as well. Mm-hmm. And that it's, what I love about the neurodiversity aspect of this is that it's saying, this is the way I function, and it might be slightly different from the way you function. What a lovely way of presenting it that is.
I feel like that's actually, this idea, you've hit the nail on the head, because, a question of mine is how can you shift the narrative from trying to fix it to almost embracing it and almost considering that as just the way that, again, unlocking a different part of who you are as a person. And I think that's, you've just sort of touched on that. And I think that's really very important.
It's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it changes the way that people think about themselves. And so we hear a lot these days that people who discover that an ADHD diagnosis, for example, then start to understand their strengths in a different way, move into a different job potentially, which suits their skills much better.
Absolutely.
I was just talking to my wife about this yesterday, actually. If you think about what we are asked to do in this world in terms of executive functioning, it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. And one thing is really
go
good...
through school, 12 years of it, go to university. Well,
I wasn't even talking about that, but yeah. But just like every day, the amount of things that we're supposed to plan in and do on time just to keep ourselves safe even, right? Financially safe, let's say. Or for a kid to just be coping. Just to be coping in school. You've got to do school all day and then homework for an hour and a half. Just to even be staying in touch with everyone else.
Absolutely.
It's all fundamentally wrong, right? And this is one I love to use this because it's terrible, but it reveals something. So business, the word, where do you think it comes from?
Busyness?
Yeah. And then before that, it comes from an old English word that literally means anxiety.
Oh, that is terrible.
But it makes sense.
Doesn't it?
And every time I say that to a group of people, you see loads of people and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I've been feeling this whole time, this whole vibration of restlessness that we've turned into an entire society.
Absolutely. And one that's quite lucrative, and that it will give you so much in return if you maintain that level of vibration constantly throughout your life until you burn out.
So is it surprising that some people, that loads of people can't keep up with that, and that some people can't keep up with that to such an extent that they really can't cope anymore? It's not surprising at all, is it?
No.
But it is. But it does need to be addressed. And, that's where these conversations need to be going in that direction. I think it does need to be addressed. 100%. We don't need to accept that way of life all the time. I don't think we have to. On an individual level, in terms of our communities, we don't need to accept that. So many people have seen that doesn't work. It's making people ill all over the world, in various different ways.
Absolutely. Schools. It's a big one.
Yeah,
schools.
It's a triggering subject for me personally.
Look, I think we talked before, sort of we started recording this, and we talked even yesterday about schools. And I think schools are there, and they've been since the beginning of time, I think. Unfortunately, school and the school system seems to be where, almost, I don't want to say it, but almost where these problems are coming from. And I don't know if there is a way. I think in an ideal world, what would it look like for schools to be understanding of the fact that ADHD and other neurodivergence is a part of life as opposed to the outlier?
What would they look like? Wow.
I mean,
it's so difficult to imagine, isn't it?
This is it. Because, again, I graduated 20 years ago. Gosh, it reveals my true age. Not much has changed. And I don't want to say it and I love the schooling system and the teachers and everything. And they really, really put in a lot of hard work and effort. But I don't think it's school level. I think it goes beyond that.
Yeah, it's systemic for sure. Yeah.
And I think that's where it is, because at the end of the day, there's this curriculum and that curriculum and the Montessori curriculum and that, and parents are almost like, okay, yes, we'll go down that way, and then okay, that doesn't work, we'll go down that way, and then you almost all roads lead to the same thing. And I don't know, I'm not an educator, but I am a parent, and I have 2 kids again in school, and I'm just trying to question: is this it? Is this the right way? Am I educating them in a way that's going to be fruitful for them? Or am I boxing them up? It is the thing that I struggle with the most. I've got 2 boys. I'm sure everyone who sort of follows on social media, they are high energy, very, very clever. But you ask them to sit down and color something or whatever it is, they're not going to want to do that. They'll make a gorgeous paper airplane and then just throw it across the room and run around trying to catch it. I don't want to take that or stifle that level of creativity and energy and whatever it is, because I can't give them an alternative.
Yeah.
What a rant.
Yeah, it's good.
Got that off my chest.
Yeah, I've got so much going on.
Yeah, no, it's just, look, I feel every time I speak to a parent, it's always, oh, well, the school said. Oh, the school said, or the teacher must have mentioned, and this is why we went to get a potential diagnosis.
We've got to acknowledge a few things at the outset, talking about education. So first of all, you're totally right. There's systemic issues with the structure of it and the way that it works, which are outdated and they don't work anymore. If they ever did, they probably never did.
Absolutely.
But you have to have all the kids there, right? Yeah. Let's just take an example. I've done loads of tuition, okay? I've done loads of individual tuition over the last 10 years. The amount that a child can learn one-to-one compared to in a school setting is unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable how much faster progress is. So teachers are dealing with a really difficult situation where they have 20 kids plus in front of them, and the aims they're being given don't match with what's possible almost.
Absolutely.
Or what's good for the kids.
You start off at a disadvantage.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's so many aspects of the system that are making it more difficult for teachers and for the children. There's one thing I want to point out about education that might be kind of, I'm not sure how much we realize this, but I talk to the students that I work with quite a lot about it. Every single thing you do in school, by definition, is something you haven't chosen to do. All of it. Because you haven't chosen to be there in the first place, right? Yeah. Every child. It's sad, isn't it? I know you look sad. I'm sorry.
I
I'm
am
not,
sad. It's
but
so
it is.
true. I forced them to be in there, but then also at the same time, you can argue on the other side. You can't really listen to a 7-year-old and ask him how he wants to educate himself.
No, you can't. No, and we've got to be realistic about society, right? We need children to become adults. We need them to, do the world when they're older. So we have to train them up however we can. And obviously now, more difficult than ever, arguably, because we have no idea what's coming. We have no idea where the future's leading, which makes it impossible to educate wisely. Well, no, it doesn't actually. It doesn't make it impossible to educate wisely, but it makes it impossible to have that much clarity about what to teach. So now the questions become more about how to teach. And that is where educational philosophy is moving. And there's been a lot of really positive stuff going on in education. In educational philosophy and the way that people are thinking about education, it has progressed quite a lot, actually. And neurodivergence has made a big impact on that. It's been one of the main reasons for that happening in recent years in the ways I'm talking about. Anyway, but it's because a child hasn't chosen to be there. That means, on a fundamental level, right from the beginning, they're already prone to distraction, already before anything has begun, okay? And then add to that the fact that lots of the stuff they're learning, they actually genuinely don't care about. They genuinely don't find interesting. Of course they're going to be distracted. And so we're going to then have to force them. And then, sit down, right? And then that's already bringing pressure and stress into the psyche, which is ironically damaging their ability to learn. In my tuition, one of the most important things I have to do, going back to what I said at the beginning about I don't know, I've worked with so many people who are terrified of maths, okay? Maths is a really scary subject.
To be honest, I hate it.
Yeah, so many people say that when I bring it up.
I'm not good at it. I mean, even my year 2 math with my son, sometimes I have to call in my husband because I forgot how to do fractions. I mean, it is hard stuff.
Okay, so here's a question for you, because this is a good example of it. If I presented you with a maths question, what would you feel?
Not comfortable.
Right. And do you think that feeling would affect your ability to answer the question?
Absolutely.
And it does. It's massive. It's literally like questions presented. They view the question, bang, there's a feeling that's there. But the problem is, and this is the number one issue with education, the number one issue, they don't realize that feeling is there. And that's our fault. They should know that feeling is there because that's basic self-awareness. But we don't bring that into the schools. That should be starting right from the beginning. It should be the first thing on the list. And actually, nurseries are great at this because it's a very different vibe down there. It's lovely.
It is a lovely vibe.
You spend all day in a nursery. And mind you, there's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But so we need to... There's a really good way of looking at this, actually. Oren Ergas is an amazing author on mindfulness in schools. He framed it so well. He said that education has always brought our attention out there and in the future. And the shift now, which needs to happen and is happening to a certain extent, is that we need to shift attention to in here, right now. Just that simple, fundamental thing. And if you do that, children naturally develop self-awareness. Then they would see, when they see a maths question, they'd be like, why am I freaking out about this so much? That's interesting. Then let's look at that, right? This is the cloud of emotion that's here. Let's look at that. When you look at that, you investigate it, it starts to change and dissolve. And then you can present someone with a question, bang, all their intelligence is on the question. Then they can do it. So can you see how this brings ADHD into the conversation? For sure, because so much of distraction is also about emotional resistance,
Absolutely.
Not wanting to do it, but also how this involves all of us. And the way that we were educated, sadly. We were not educated to be aware of our own emotions, and so then we do that to the kids, and then everyone talks about conscious parenting. Definitely not in schools, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was an emotionless, education. I mean, there was nothing about, go back and talk about how, your perception of whatever is going on at the moment. There was nothing like that in school, at least in my time.
No, I don't think so. And can you see how you were irrelevant?
Oh, yeah.
You were irrelevant. And as soon as you make the child's own experience relevant, everything becomes magic, honestly. I start so many sessions. One of the kids I was working with last week, he's in one of my ECAs, after school clubs, and he said something like, we talked about planning a session. I said most of the time I try not to plan on purpose because I want to be able to use what's happening for you guys. He was like, what? It made no sense to him at all. And then we talked about it later in the session. It's like, look how interesting. that girl just said that thing that's so interesting. Don't we need to stop and look at that? There's no time for that. And that's the problem, right? There's no time for any of it. And when you're at home with your kids, there's no time for this. There's no time for this. There's no time for you to tie your shoelace because we've got to chuck you in the car because you've got to be there by 8.
So true.
I know, see, this is why I try not to start.
It's so true. It's
because
just
all of this
literally
is
all
debilitating.
morning because somebody could be saying something. I'm like, yep, that's great.
Yeah.
Can you put your shoes on?
That was the last video I made. It was challenging parents. Try and spend a week without saying, hurry up. Get a move on. Quick. Try it. It's so hard. It is so hard. And it's really, really damaging psychologically.
Do you know, just a tip, just a personal tip, what
please.
I try to do, Saturday mornings, the kids are literally in their pajamas till like 11.
That's lovely.
I don't really care. We've got nowhere to be. I try not to put anything in the morning and they enjoy it. And just because I feel like we are on such a rat race in the school week that, I mean, it's exhausting for me, let alone for them. So it's just the one day of the week. I'm like, just stay.
And how do they behave?
It's mellow. It's not.
The nervous
it's
system.
not just and it's just I'm not having to battle quickly. I feel like the more I say it, it just gets the house in just a big, spiral of tension.
And because this relates to ADHD in a really important way, actually. So if you are making someone rush, they can't use their intelligence. They can't use their attention.
I mean, fair enough. I have to say, even me, you rush me, I'll forget half the things I'm supposed to be bringing with me.
And so this leads quite nicely into the most important area, I think, which is stillness, which you mentioned in the intro, right? If we slow down, everything changes. I mean, every aspect of your experience.
Let's talk about stillness, meditation.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do one.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do a short meditation because it's much better to do it than to talk about it.
I'm excited. Okay? Let's do it.
But if you're driving when you're listening to this, maybe don't close your eyes.
Don't close your eyes.
Yeah. But you can still do it with your eyes open. I'm going to close my eyes
and enjoy it.
Okay. So, just closing your eyes at your own pace, which is important. Even that is important. And when your eyes are closed, immediately your experience changes in some way. So just notice that. Suddenly makes other things become apparent, like your breath. So just notice your breath. Purely out of curiosity, not because you want to gain anything from it, just to feel what a single breath feels like. Just continue to do that. Just stay with the process of breathing. What you might sense is that there is this kind of restless, buzzy energy in the background of mind that wants to move. Let's just notice that as well. You don't need to force it away. You don't need to change it. Welcome your mind into this moment. And just notice now that this moment is now. There's no past. There's no future. We're just here now. You might just notice there's a little bit of space that opens up that feels a little bit peaceful. And then when you're ready, just have one more slow breath. And then in your own time, that's very important, in your own time, bring yourself back to this room. And after you open your eyes, just look around. Just pay attention to how you feel.
Do you know what? One thing I noticed, breath-wise, it got slower. Not by me forcing it. Just I noticed that I was breathing a little bit faster right at the start. Then it slowed down.
And you said something so important in there. And this is why after meditation it's really important to look at it and reflect on what's happening. Because what we just did, the guidance I was giving, contains all of the things that I think are most important about the way we should attend to things. So, curiosity, right? Notice that, and this is amazing for people who really struggle with ADHD, just acknowledging your mind and whatever it's doing without trying to change it in any way. That's strange, right? That is strange. That's the opposite of the normal approach. The normal approach is identify it, box it as quickly as possible, fix it as quickly as possible. This is the complete opposite, and it opens a huge space. Suddenly, the mind is not the enemy. If your mind is not your enemy, that's freedom. That's peaceful. It's peaceful not to have an enemy. Right?
Absolutely.
That's literally what it means. But you said something which was so important. You said that their breathing slowed down without you trying to.
Yeah.
And that's so amazing that you noticed that, because it, what I call uncentered attention heals. It naturally heals. So, for example, let's go back to when I told you about a child that sees the maths question, and then there's this fuzzy cloud of negativity that arises. Negativity. That's very important. It's not. What do you think the response of a child is when I show them that feeling is there? How do you think they actually respond to that, noticing it? Because they've not seen it before. They're just like in it. And then you're like, hey, that's happening. How do you think they react to that?
Slightly relieved?
Not in the beginning.
Scared?
In the beginning, they hate it and they want to change it as quickly as possible. They want to get rid of the emotion.
The emotion.
As quickly as possible. But then, you're right, then just noticing it changes the energy and it provides some relief. It's like, oh, that's a thing. It's actually there. Do you know what I mean? But it's invisible. We can't see it. So it gets this is why all of this has not been valued in our society, because it's invisible. You can't measure it.
No. Do you know, you also get, again, people saying mindfulness and meditation, I can't quieten down my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
My mind is racing. I still can't. I can't. Is that something that we should be aiming for?
Well, it's so important. I'm really glad you brought it up, because that's why the instructions I'm always giving in meditation is purposefully, because people feel like they're trying to get away from the mind, right?
That's right.
The mind is annoying. Yeah? Let's accept it. The mind is annoying.
I can't get it to quieten down.
No, of course not. We can't, because we're trying to get it to calm down using the mind, right? So because we're always using the mind. So we're in there like, I need to be quiet. So I'm going to do loads of stuff to be quiet. Doing loads of stuff is not quiet.
Yeah.
So not taking any action feels weird.
Yeah.
Right? We're not very good at that.
No.
We're terrible at that. But paradoxically, that is an action. To not take action is an action, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's surrender. And it's really wise and it works. It actually transforms the situation. So, and it's such a shame that people think that about meditation, because it stops so many people from going into it. Because I tried it like 3 times, 4 times. I had that app and I was watching all the animations, and then I tried a few times, and then it just, my mind was still just like this. It's like, okay, it's so important for us to reframe that, because, and especially within the context of ADHD, because I think that meditation can be so helpful for ADHD, like it is for any human being. And it can transform attention. That's what it's doing. It's transforming attention. And if we understand that it's about creating an open space which welcomes everything, it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that at the start, definitely. But if we can understand that, it shifts the whole conversation. And that really is transformative. I've seen thousands of examples in my own life. My book is filled with moments where something difficult or horrible was happening or really stressful, and I just had to open and welcome it in and not try and do anything about it for a second, and then it changes. And everyone can do that. We can all do this.
Can I ask how? I mean, how does it change? What's the concept behind meditation that allows for that to happen? To open the space and to allow change to actually, I mean, is it the pause?
It's funny, you keep asking all the perfect questions, because I had so many things that I wanted to bring up in this conversation. I thought there's no way we'll cover even half of them, but you are asking the perfect ones, which are reminding me of the most important things.
I'm just trying to think, the person who's listening, I'm like, okay, so it does, but how? I mean,
the problem with this is that our culture has created a set of answers about fundamental questions. What is a human being? What is life? How are we supposed to live? What is the mind? What is mental health? What is sanity? We have answers to all those questions. I question those answers completely. I don't think we know what sanity is. We judge all mental health from the standpoint that a neurotypical person is sane, right? Or healthy. But we're living in an unhealthy society. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. That's what we're talking about here, right? So we don't know what the self is. But we don't stop to ask these really deep questions. They should be asking these in schools right from the youngest age. What is the mind? I don't know. Do you? But adults don't want to say that to kids. I don't know. Because we have to be the authority. But if you say to the kid, what is the mind? They come up with the most unbelievable responses. They're amazing.
I'm going to ask my kids this
afternoon. Yeah, I've got loads of those questions. I can send you a list.
Yeah.
But so the reason I'm saying all this is because, ACT therapy. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's a form of therapy that myself and many of my colleagues use, acceptance commitment therapy, and it's based on this principle we're discussing, acceptance. Okay, just step back, pay attention properly without reacting, and just notice and keep noticing. And we know it's transformative. There's been so many studies on ACT which have shown that this is really transformative. But the reason why is because of what the self is and what the mind is. And we don't really understand that because it's not our culture. So from a perspective of the Indian spiritual tradition, let's say, of Advaita Vedanta, as it's called, non-duality, it's that we are consciousness, right? And we are pure consciousness. And that is very powerful. If that's what we actually are, that's very, very powerful. Not the mind. We think we are the mind because we use the mind all the time. So we've built a society based on the mind. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right? Everything about society worships the mind.
Absolutely.
But we're not the mind. You are aware of your mind. So what's aware of your mind is something deeper and it's much more powerful. And that is, it's got loads of different names. Consciousness, awareness, the witness. So in meditation, all you're doing is stepping back to that place instead and living from there. And when you live from there, all the rules change completely. You don't have to fix everything. Not at all. That's what surrender is, going to that place. And stuff just kind of works itself out a lot, right? And you don't have to fix everything, for one example.
Yeah.
That's a huge rant.
I don't know why. It just makes me quite emotional. I don't know. It's one of those things that I feel we're so far from that as a society.
In society, in terms of structure.
That's
society.
right. And it's really sad that is the case.
Yeah.
Because I feel, I would say, the majority of not issues, but I would say trouble that occurs in life can potentially be handled or coped with that way.
So much more effective. It saves all your energy. You're not doing anything, right? Saves all your energy. You don't have to think about everything and try and fix everything through mind. And we've done this with ADHD. This is the paradigm we live in. It's the entire paradigm comes from fear and control, because those are the mind's two number one strategies for everything. And they've been very, very helpful, right? Mm-hmm. Over time, they have been very helpful for us to survive. Let's not dismiss that. But fear is not how you want to perceive something. It doesn't allow you to see what's happening clearly. So if we can observe our mind without fear, everything changes. And that is what meditation is asking us to do. But the problem is, people talk about meditation as a strategy to fix ADHD. Again, we're getting the same problem.
Correct. I was going to ask, is that a strategy? And again, people will be like, okay, well, so I don't want to put or go down the medication route. It must be meditation.
Yeah. So there's a million different types of meditation, right? And anything with your eyes closed is meditation these days, right? So my colleague Briar calls some of them a massage, which I really like. She's like, no, this is not a massage. A massage is the one where you close your eyes and you imagine you're on the beach and you listen to the wind and stuff, and it's lovely. Like, that's a massage. But there's other kinds of meditation that are more difficult, more challenging, more just different, right? But lots and lots of meditation comes from the standpoint of control, unfortunately, as well. And we must not see it in that way. We're trying to go away from the whole paradigm of control. To try to perceive your mind without control is healing. Okay, it really is healing. But so meditation must come from that standpoint of, it's not, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes a day and it's going to fix everything. Because that is the way our mind wants to look at it. I need to do this to fix this. It's already thought there's a solution. But the mind doesn't know what it wants. It doesn't actually know what health is, let's say. Right? We're looking at health from a standpoint of being in a state of disorder and restlessness all the time. Let's face it, the average human being does not know peace.
No.
Right? There's no peace, is there? So we're judging everything from that standpoint. So of course it's all muddy and murky. So with meditation, when it comes to treating ADHD, it's important to have it contextualized and realize that meditation is pointing to a completely different way of living. Radically different in every way. And we avoid that. We don't want that, right? We want to put it into our life in a nice, neat way so we can preserve all the stuff we like about our life. Just change that. Just put this in and everything else, right? We can't do that because it all needs to change, right? It's a very radical perspective, but thinking of it in that way leads in the right direction. Mm-hmm. It opens, it deepens. Do you see what I mean? Mm. Rather than, it's not an answer. No, it's not a magic answer that's going to solve everything. But it's an important part of a holistic way of looking at mind and health.
Do you think that this type of, I guess, approach or this holistic approach of the mind should be taught at the earliest age?
Definitely. And it's so easy. It's so easy. It's criminal how easy it is to do this with kids. Done it for so long now, and it's just, I do this with my 3-year-old. It's so simple. It's just...
I'm going to bring my boys to you. Teach them a few things.
It's so simple. Like you said something really interesting a while ago. You said you're sad because it feels like it's so far away.
Yeah.
And that's really, really horrible and true in a way. But the best thing is that in another way, it's not far away at all. All I'm talking about is your true nature, my true nature. What we actually are is this awareness, which is really powerful. And so we just have to recognize that. And as soon as you recognize that, that's it. You're there already. There's no huge journey that everyone has to go on to transform everything.
It's not that deep. Yeah.
No, it's everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, this is a whole different thing. We shouldn't go too far into this because people don't like it. But we don't understand. I think people don't really realize this, but there's a lot of debate about the nature of reality itself, okay? And where mind fits into that. It matters because lots of very well-respected, highly, highly intelligent people have come to the conclusion after a lot of investigation that this is not just solid matter outside of us, right? There's lots of quantum physicists who started quantum physics who said this is made of consciousness, not matter. So imagine if that's true, for example, right? That changes everything. It means that you are connected to the rest of the world in a completely mysterious way. So the point of this is that our culture has no understanding of that at all.
No.
It has no place.
No, zero place.
So this is so far away in that it's societally, like you said. But as an individual, you as an individual have all kinds of power to transform your own way of being in the world and at home for your children. And any teacher listening to this who's thinking, but the system and the way the school works and all this. No, you have so much power within your own classroom to bring this in. And it's just a matter of little meditation at the beginning of every lesson. It's so powerful. It goes a huge way. When I started doing that in the first year, I always use this example. I remember there was a girl about halfway through the year and she said, Mr. Watts, please, can we do a meditation? It's like, yeah, okay. Why? She's like, I just feel like I need it. That's it. She knew. They'd learned as soon as you go to that, everything else starts to feel a bit like, oh, that's a bit fast.
And I just feel like now more than ever, I mean, we talked about it earlier on, and, with the fact that life is fast, just that reset.
It's tiny. An amazing ACT trainer who came here recently to do a training, she said if she had to go back in time and give her previous self one piece of advice when she was parenting, it would be one breath. Just one breath. And it's really powerful when she said that. And I started using that purposefully with my own kids and just realizing it's that simple, because it just creates a space. And in that space, just some intelligence comes. Mm. Can I say something else about that just before we move on? Because about technology, because it relates exactly to that. And I just think it's such an interesting way of looking at it. This is from the guy who created the London School of Meditation. Okay, so he's an Indian guru and he brought the tradition over. And he said that every human being has as their birthright during the day hundreds of opportunities for rest for the mind. And it comes between activities. So after one thing is finished, before you do something else, there's a tiny opportunity to do nothing. And we're supposed to. And what have we done with every single one of those moments?
Put something else in to do.
What have we put in?
Phones.
Yeah. The fastest, most stimulating thing you could possibly imagine. We've taken every little moment of potential rest for the mind and filled it with pure stimulation. Another thing about the phone, I was just thinking yesterday about this. Someone said they swipe. Why does someone swipe away? They swipe away because they don't like it, right? So you're training yourself to be able to get rid of everything you don't like in a millisecond.
That's
so what's
true.
going to happen when we're faced with something really horrible?
You don't know. You don't know what to do. And it will start to affect you in ways that you probably have no coping skills. Yeah. It's scary. It's scary. And I don't even know now, obviously, with AI, and social media in itself is wonderful and flawed at the same time. And I just think there should be things like mindfulness and meditation. It should be a prerequisite for industries, for organizations, for schools, for everybody to be able to potentially cope with whatever is happening in the outside world.
Exactly.
And these little micro moments, as you mentioned, it's reset. Yeah. To be able to actually kick in your higher function or higher analysis, to be able to get through the rest of the day. I have to say, when I am potentially on a heavy sort of technology day, I've got lots of things happening on social media or whatever it might be, I'm so drained by the end of the day. I feel as if I've been working out twice a day, for 3 hours I'm physically and emotionally and mentally exhausted. And it would be 5 p.m. But I had a full day where I'm looking at this and doing that and looking at that person. And I just think clearly it's just been a day with too much technology. And I'm sure that is a common opinion. And I'm pretty sure the way that the algorithms and all of that are rigged up to actually exhaust you as opposed to give you a break. I feel a lot of the times, the reason why I say that, a lot of the times, and I was having this discussion with my mom, she's like, I just want to relax and just scroll on my phone. I'm like, Mom, that's not relaxing. You're not relaxing. It's not relaxing. You're on edge.
It's relaxing because it's just the same as TV. It's relaxing because it takes us out of the default mode network. And it takes us away from thinking about our personal life, which is the mind's default mode, which is why it's called that. So if you just sit there, then your mind inevitably turns towards your life. And we don't like that. That annoys us. So we do something else so that doesn't happen. But the funny thing is, meditation shows this. If you sit with that for just a while longer, it shifts into something different. And that's actually nice. I often challenge kids to do nothing. It's really fun. It's so fun. So Vipassana retreat. Have you heard of this?
No.
So people go away for like 10 days. Okay. So no books, no technology. You can't write either. And so just imagine a group of children like 8 years old hearing about this. And I say to them, right, look, just pretend as soon as you leave this room, you're going on this retreat. Okay. Just pretend and see how you feel. Right. So we're going to take away all your technology. And they're like, and you can't even read. And then the ones who actually read are like, and all the rest are like,
oh, we don't care about the books.
It's going to be boring food, boring bland food. Lovely, nourishing, but boring taste-wise, maybe. And then the real kicker, no speaking.
Oh my goodness.
10 days. So people do this all over the world, all the time. And it's a complete reset. reset. I've never actually done one. It's a complete reset. I've spoken to lots of people who have. It's just it's a detox, right? Detox for the mind. And so, can you imagine?
No, I cannot. Even myself, let alone my 6, 7, and 4-year-old.
But it's like teaching us. What's that teaching us? It's teaching us to just exist with reality.
Well, that's
exist with life as it is, without being able to do anything about it. Can you imagine how much it changes people when they come back into modern society? I bet it's terrifying.
No, it is terrifying. But I mean, when was the last time you went to a waiting room? Like a waiting room to see a dentist, for example? I mean, I take my kids to dentists all the time, and usually there's people. Back in my day, in a dentist, you had like magazines and people.
And those fun little games.
Fun little games. Yeah. My dentist has one because she's amazing. But you look around at all the adults, and all the adults are like this.
Yeah.
There's not a single person that even made eye contact with the person that you sat next to. You know, it's just, again, I don't want to be this like technology basher, but it should be, especially, I mean, this is all going on social media and we're having a conversation and it's got cameras and things like that. But it's working things in your life like meditation and mindfulness to be able to kind of just break the cycle of this loop that we're constantly on. It's like, pause, that's enough, start something else. So I guess that's why I keep talking about the negative aspect. The positive aspects is, of course, doing things like this and having conversations like this and having the access of information to so many people. And it is a double-edged sword, but it's just to talk about these, I guess, tools in a toolbox that I find really, really necessary to just do life currently, I guess. Another thing I wanted to quickly touch on is just obviously activity, outdoor activity, physical activity. Does meditation and physical activity, do they tie in? Ish.
In what sense?
In the sense that they are both very much needed to be able to you know,
for mental health and well-being.
For mental health. I mean, let's say, let's focus it specifically for ADHD.
Okay, yeah. It's interesting because lots of people say like, oh, I don't meditate because I go to the gym.
Yeah.
Lots of people say that.
100%.
I hear that all the time. But it's really
to be honest, I
important
think I was probably one of those people.
Yeah, but I think it's fair enough because everybody knows that meditation is good for your peace of mind and well-being and it refreshes you, and everyone knows exercise can do that in a massive way as well. But it's different, and the ways in which it's different are very important because lots of the stuff we've been talking about that I'm saying are benefits of meditation, they're things that are totally unrelated to exercise. For example, perceiving your emotions in a new way. I don't think people really, I'm not sure if that happens from exercise necessarily, right? Or understanding the nature of the mind. That doesn't happen through exercise. And those things are important for our well-being. So I think we should be having all of it, right? The holistic response to, not just to ADHD, but a holistic response to being a human right now is, let's get everything good in as possible, right? Do you know that this is horrendous, kids spend less time outdoors than prison inmates on average?
Oh my God.
Apparently. I'll send you the article that says that. Horrendous, right? And then they went to a prison and they told some prison inmates that, and the prison inmates were really sad for the kids out in civilization, the rest of civilization. But
if that statement doesn't shock everybody, I mean, I don't know what will.
Horrendous, right? But so, yeah, of course, there isn't enough physical activity in school, I would argue. When I was at school, we loved it because we had every afternoon we would have lunch and we would have a very short lesson, like half an hour, and then we would just do games for the rest of the afternoon. It was just football, rugby, tennis, whatever it is. And that was amazing. And it keeps getting reduced, it seems, and it's really damaging for well-being, of course. So meditation should be a normal thing, which is understood and enjoyed, because that's the biggest issue. Can you imagine how difficult it is for me to teach lots of kids to meditate or even to try to bring it up? Because it's so loaded. And just to stop for a second brings all these judgments from the mind of, oh, this is boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a big deal, and that seems powerful. But what I keep trying to reiterate is that all we need to do is just wait for that to change into something else. So watch what happens to that boredom. Just actually look at it. Observe the boredom and see what happens. It doesn't like that at all, you know. But it changes something. But, yeah, needs to be brought in schools, this kind of understanding. But to go back to what I was saying about the way we understand the self, for me the most important, the number one thing we need to do is look at the deeper questions properly. We need to look at the deeper questions again, but we have so many voices in society that are reinforcing an outdated paradigm, whether it's education or the just the way of looking at physics as though life is meaningless. That's outdated as well from so many different perspectives. And just starting to look with more curiosity and openness about everything and find out for yourself. Do you know what I mean? In terms of meditation, that's what my journey's been like. I want to find out for myself what my mind is. I want to find out for myself if my attention has an issue in any way. Find out for myself. We can all do that, Absolutely. But we're not encouraged to do that.
No, we're never really encouraged to do that. It's not something
the teacher will give you the answer.
Yeah, or your parents will give you your answer.
Will tell you what to do. Yeah.
And it's not something that we ever really explore, and I think it should be done more often, but it's a lot harder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what kind of feeling does it give now for us to talk about this depth and complexity of it? It doesn't give satisfaction to the mind.
No.
Does it?
No. It's almost it's kind of worrying for me. I'm just trying to think, what am I feeling? I'm feeling obviously quite hopeful and really comforted to know that there are so many ways that we can potentially go and almost explore. But then also at the same time, I feel that there is a weight of the unknown that I'm scared of.
Yeah.
And that I don't want, again, I'm going to speak for the majority of parents. I don't want to, it's a lot of effort trying to change things, change a certain part of the way that we live or society or what. It is easier to just conform and go down that way. And that's just the way it is. You know, to go against the grain slightly or to find a different alternative or to have a look at something that might be a bit different is always a bit challenging.
It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Can I give you an interesting quote?
Yeah.
One of my favorite teachers I've studied called Krishnamurti, and he went to the UN and he was called like the world teacher. He was supposed to be teaching everybody how to be, how to find peace and freedom, etc. And he went to the UN to talk about world peace. How can man live peacefully on the earth? Quite sexist. Humans, I'm sure they're meant.
Okay.
And he did his whole talk exploring the whole depth of human living, and people were really unsatisfied by the end because they wanted a strategy, something they could just do, a quick fix. And then one of them said this basically, like, but what can we actually do? And he said, change completely. What a horrendous sentence that is. I would have been
like, what?
Change completely.
What do you mean?
But that's a good answer though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That actually, it doesn't satisfy the mind, but it can give us this energy that can allow us to do things that are really meaningful, to make us realize how deep and important all this is. Creates the right kind of energy, which is going to get you to go in the opposite direction of the unwise, unhealthy thing in society, even when there's loads of pressure for you to do that thing. It takes a lot of, serious energy to do that, right? And we need to unlock that.
Yeah. And I feel like, again, once you unlock it even a little bit and you think, okay, that's not so bad. I'll open the door a little wider. That's not so bad. I'll open it even a bit more. And then all of a sudden you're just breaking the door down. And it's these, I find a lot of the times, again, even with, I can only speak for myself, micro adjustments to life. They make a huge change over time.
Like what? Can you give an example?
Whatever it might be. Let's say, for example, in before bedtime, we read a story. If I include a 2-minute meditation, is that really going to impact my life so very much? No. It's not taking that much time. It's benefiting, but I could potentially take that one step, which could be on a bigger journey down the line.
Exactly.
Where I could be opening up way more different options and giving my kids different tools to be able to handle bigger situations, more stressful situations, again, when they're a bit older. That 2 minutes. I didn't have to go put them in a silent retreat, but I did it just after bedtime or just after a story. Start with a minute, Micro moments or micro adjustments, I find, are easily digested.
Yeah.
At least
and
again
make a
for
huge
me.
difference.
And
they make a disproportionate amount of difference compared to what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Because and that's because, just going back to the essence of meditation, what it's doing is it's literally changing. It changes your perception of time. Yeah. It kind of changes time. So what happens is you can open up moments.
Absolutely.
So let's say, they call this choice points in mindfulness. Let's say our daughter's having a massive meltdown. just a bit of a silence, stillness, bit of awareness, it just seems to make everything go.
Well, that's it. It's taking that little pause.
Yeah, and something different is born in that.
Absolutely.
And it's always a good thing.
Yeah.
You know?
It's again, I think in business, it's those, 1% gains, these marginal gains that amount to something big. But obviously I'm not very good at that businessy side, but I just have noticed that small things I do, tiny little things that are not going to be a shock to the system. I'm not changing the house and its structure or anything like that. But these little things could potentially, whether it's like a little drop of something they will recognize and they will sort of tap into maybe 5 or 6 years down the line when they're faced with a stressful situation because of something we had potentially done for a minute or two after story at bedtime. I just find that is something that it should be almost a prerequisite.
Yeah. It's just hard to habituate in a
It
society.
really is. It really is. I feel like, again, we could talk about this for days. But I just wanted to sort of, obviously, you've got parents who are listening in, parents, moms, dads, men, women. When it comes to ADHD, in your opinion, what is one thing we shouldn't be saying to ourselves, so our own inner person, or to our children?
Certainly for a time, we shouldn't be saying anything.
That is annoying.
It is. But it helps. It really helps. Not saying anything allows you to perceive what's happening. So opening up silent space, it's not only... Okay, look, let's get back to the example again. The same child seeing the maths question and seeing this huge emotion that comes up. If you observe it silently, they observe it silently as well. And you've got most energy when you're silent. Speaking is a very specific thing we're doing, but we just think it's the best thing ever because it's created by the mind. And the mind always wants to be in control. So we try to say everything to make it better, but silence is miraculous and it's so difficult. How hard is that to do?
It is. It's hard for me to sit back and watch without saying a word, especially with my kids.
And it feels like not doing anything, but actually silence is an action. And it's an action then you're modeling. So you're modeling. One of the most important things parents should always be doing, and I try to do as much as I can, it's very, very difficult, is to allow your kids, allow your child's viewpoint to be as valid as your own. So inquire with them into something. So when I was going and turning my phone off all the time, and I was trying to do this as much as I could, I would talk to my daughter about it. She was 2 at the time, right? And I would talk to her a lot. And I remember some really lovely moments where I would say to her, like, oh my God, you know what happened? She's like, what? I'd be like, my mind just told me to pick up my phone. She's like, oh my God, your mind is so silly. That's what she said. And I'm like, I know. And why did I want to do it? And she's like, and I'm like, exactly, I don't know why. And then she'd laugh at my mind. That's really nice for them because they're not under pressure. So if my child was diagnosed with ADHD tomorrow, let's say, I would want to explore it with them in a very patient, open way without making conclusions, because conclusions are the things that close everything down. And it makes them, it closes everything down. So if you can observe and pay attention without concluding, that's so healing, but it's really hard.
It's really hard because, again, a natural default is, it's fine, we'll get it under control, don't worry, it'll be okay, everything's... As if there's
stopping their feeling, right? We don't like their feeling, we don't want to feel their feeling, we don't want to feel our feeling, shut it down. Absolutely. All that stuff, that's all our normal reactivity, and to go beyond it is just so difficult. And it's every day, it's work every single day, but it's leading in the right direction, and it's the right direction to go in. And so I guess it's just like then it comes down to how much energy are we willing to expend for the sake of what is right? And that's a difficult one.
That's a huge question. Huge question.
See, this is why philosophy drives people mad, right? My wife doesn't want me to talk to her about this stuff.
Like, on a date, she's like, Tom, just go into the other room then.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us, book-wise, when are we going to get our hands
Christmas. It's going to be released. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to not having to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult to get a book to be made and all of that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to people reading it, because for me it's very vulnerable honest book because it's my actual own experience, you know, and everyone can say whatever they want about someone else's experience. And often in this modern age, especially, as you know, on Twitter, etc., people are often not very nice. So, but it's been amazing to track the journey of being a parent and see all these little moments. And that's the whole point of the book, essentially, which I didn't realize at the time, but is that it shows what happens if you just try and make that space. Obviously, I mess up all the time.
Oh, we all do.
But when I make the space, something happens that's different, and it's always a good thing. And that's just why I keep trying to do it.
I'm very excited. I think once you get the book out and you know, sort of feel a little bit of relief once that book comes out. I mean, you have to come back in here and
I'd love
to. And just talk specifically about it, because honestly, I think, again, lived experience is what is valued.
It's what we learn from best,
yeah,
isn't it? And that's what I'm saying in the intro. You know, this is what we learn from. Novels even teach us, even though they're not real experiences, because we're learning from someone else's experience. And I've taught mindfulness meditation for so long, but every time I say a funny story from my own life, that's what makes people actually connect and be like, oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so much of parenting is so ridiculous, right? And I would have forgotten. I reckon there's 100 things in this book I would have forgotten they ever happened, and they're just so bizarre and funny and weird. And so that's why it's been really nice. That's why I've carried on ever since, which is really stressful.
I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I hope. I hope you enjoy it.
No, I will. I'm sure I will. We've obviously got to the end of an hour and a half of jam-packed information, honestly invaluable information. I think it's the work that you do with parents, with children, with adults. I think it's definitely, I'm going to go as far as to say, honestly, quite rare, especially here in the region. And I think it's something that is much needed. You're shedding a light on something that it carries so much confusion and a bit of a burden and fear, and you break it down so beautifully in a way that almost is exciting. I don't know how to explain it. It's exciting. It's almost like something to explore as opposed to be scared of. And I think that's very rare in this time, in this world. And honestly, I'm so grateful that you came on here to talk about that specifically, because in a world, again, we always keep mentioning and going back to it, labels, medication, diagnosis, to be able to have something else that allows a little bit more questions and allows for a bit more flexibility in you as a person is what is required. And I feel people are craving it, but just don't even know where to start. So honestly, thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for being here. And I'm excited, obviously, for the book, but I'm not going to let you go until you give me a quote that you live by. I always start the episode with a quote to kind of put a bit of context onto what we're going to be talking about, but I end it with a quote, but from the guest.
Okay. Can I respond to what you said first?
Yes.
Just quickly. That's really, really nice. I really appreciate everything you said there. And I love that you said that there's an excitement to this, because it does feel like we talk about negative stuff a lot. We do, but there is a tremendous excitement in the fact that there's so many aspects of our paradigm that are changing, and these other more holistic, transformative things are being brought in. They're squeezing in from around the edges, and it is making an impact, and it's going to more as time goes on. And thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you.
The quote, this is my favorite quote, I think. I would like to be able to live by this. This is a quote from a guru, and he said, "Wisdom tells me I am nothing. Love tells me I am everything. And between those two, my life flows." Isn't that nice?
Love that.
I wish it was just me speaking from my own experience. No. I'd like that to be my own experience all the time. Yeah, but it's really powerful, I think, because there's so much in there.
Absolutely. I'm definitely going to re-quote that. No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dom. Thank you for being here.
Nice. Thank
this
you for
was
asking
incredible.
All these great questions, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate it.